Today is April 18th, 2021. My name is Joshua Longoria. I'm interviewing Juan Antonio Gonzalez for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Hereafter abbreviated as UTRGV, this project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Mr. Gonzalez, that this interview will be placed in the University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. The University Library Special Collections and Archives will archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation you are willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright or non-exclusive right to the interview and any other material you donate to Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting to make sure you agree with our interview procedures before we continue. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say, yes, I agree, or no, I don't agree after each question. Do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your material at the UTRGV University Library?
Yes, I agree.
Do you want UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
Yes, I agree.
Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
I agree.
Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voces of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
I agree, and I give my consent.
As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We use information for the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voces sends its UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives, we would have stripped out any contact information for yourself or family members, so that will be part of your public file. Your
Okay.
public file will only be accessible at UTRGV University Library. The final 2 questions ask for your consent on what I just described. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to the researchers at UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives?
I agree.
On occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone number or your email with journalists?
Yes, I totally give consent.
Thank you for your consent. Your experiences and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives. I look forward to what you say in the interview questions I will now ask.
Okay.
So, Juan, thank you for your time. Like I said earlier, your stories and experiences are valuable to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives in the Voces project. Because you worked in the gig economy serving the needs of others in an area which was heavily impacted by COVID-19 in Edinburgh, Texas, your stories matter to us as a whole. So, before I ask you to share stories about your life in this pandemic, tell us, who is Juan Gonzalez?
Well, Juan Gonzalez is a native of the Rio Grande Valley, and I've been working in the food delivery industry um, for a little for some time now, and then right now I'm also working in the produce warehouse industry.
So the first question I want to ask you is, when did you first hear about COVID-19 and how did you learn about it? Did you hear it from the radio, TV, social media, etc.?
Well, I first learned about it through social media. I have close contacts in Southeast Asia, where the news was first given to them at at their location at that point of time. So I first heard it from like social media through them.
So when you had first heard about COVID-19, what was your first reaction over the information about it?
I was, kind of pessimistic about it. I wasn't sure what it was going on. We didn't have actual data that could confirm whether this was a localized virus or it was a virus that was going to impact um, the United States or my local area. So I was kind of pessimistic, but at the same time, kind of concerned about it.
At what point did you realize that this pandemic was a serious life-altering event?
When the CDC started, when the CDC and the United States government basically started banning certain flights, and we started having an increase of outbreaks here in the Rio Grande Valley, that's when it was very concerning to me.
So over the last few months, what news media or social media or other sources do you rely on to keep you informed about coronavirus?
I usually use the CDC website and the WHO, which is the World Health Organization.
So can you share with me what you understand about COVID-19 as an infectious disease and any of its variants? Likewise, can you share with me what you don't understand about this new coronavirus?
Well, I've basically been on top of it, but there's a lot of things, not only myself, but there's a lot of things that the whole community itself we don't understand. But as far as what we know at this point of time is that the coronavirus, it has mutated it to different variants. Um, the coronavirus right now, it has impacted not only a certain how can I say this, now a certain group of age or sex of people, but it's a generalized pandemic.
So, can you tell me what you know about the various vaccines available to the public, and how do you feel about these vaccines?
Well, there's various vaccines right now. There's the Johnson and Johnson. There's the Pfizer. There's the Moderna, AstraZeneca. There is the Sputnik vaccine also. I personally think that that's what we need to reach herd immunity. I myself have is a recipient of Pfizer vaccine.
Do you have a vaccination story you would like to share with me now, or perhaps later in this interview?
Sure. I mean, basically, the vaccine, there's a lot of myths going out, but the vaccine itself, it's just a genetic code, basically. It's a genetic code that will help you be immune to the coronavirus and its symptoms, and it would not be a progressive virus into your immune system. As far as what I went through, it was just mild aches and pain here and there on my first vaccine. The second vaccine, which is the booster one, was pretty good. I mean, I had no symptoms, but the first one did have mild symptoms of, headache, fever, um, overall body aches.
Do your family members hold the same beliefs as you about COVID-19, or are there some who take it more seriously or lightly?
Well, we all take it very seriously here in my household due to the fact that we have our household is basically elderlies over the age of 70. So we do take it very serious. And plus, we have two people here that are with extreme health conditions that we have to be careful with them.
I'd like to move the conversation over to talking about your friends and family now. This will mostly consist of what roles and impacts the pandemic had on your family and friends' well-being. So I understand you live with a family of five. Can you tell me a
Correct.
bit about each of the people who live with you?
Well, we have, like I said, it's a family of five. Two of us are mid-age, um, working class people. The other three are elderly people over the age of 70, which have some serious health conditions.
So during the start of the pandemic, I understand that you were fairly quick with understanding the severity of the virus.
Mhm.
Excuse me. But how did those other family members react to the virus when it had first appeared?
Well, we were very concerned. We were very concerned because there was mixed information in the media on your local Hispanic television systems here. So we were very concerned. We were scared, or they were scared. Um, they didn't know what was going to be the overall outcome of this pandemic or how long it was going to be.
As the virus progressed, did everyone within the household comply with CDC guidelines? And were there any problems you had with them?
We had no problems, and yes, we had to comply due to the fact that we have, like I said, and I mentioned earlier, we have two patients here that are severely have underlying health conditions.
So you feel like your family, or rather, do you feel like your family took the virus more seriously than others around you during your day-to-day life?
Yes, due to the condition of these people
Mhm,
that I had mentioned before, of course, we had to be more precaution of what we were doing and meeting the guidelines and probably overdoing the guidelines so that we can ensure, the well-being of the elderly people here.
mhm. I understand that your mother is bedridden. Were there any problems with providing specifically for her during the pandemic?
Not providing the normal needs, but it was very hard to providing her the vaccine because in the Rio Grande Valley where we are from, the in order to get the vaccine, you had to literally pre-register, you had to literally make lines. And when you have a patient that is bedbound, it's very, very hard to take that patient and make a 12, 13-hour line so they can get vaccinated. So that was very difficult. Um, However, the city of Edinburgh, with the National Guard or the Texas National Guard, we were able to get them the vaccination here at home, and in a very prompt manner.
Were there any specific roles that your family members had that dealt with getting necessities such as food or cleaning supplies, or was everybody pretty much providing for themselves?
No, we were trying our best to get the cleaning supplies, more of the sanitary supplies because of the condition of my family members. But we were having a hard time due to the fact that there was a lot of panic buying here. So we were literally trying to save as much of the sanitary items, like your sanitary wipes or your disinfecting wipes and sprays and all of that.
So when your family went shopping for food or basic sanitary supplies, what was the experience like when shopping? Can you describe what was available as well as if there were any experiences with maybe customers or individuals while shopping that were there?
Well, I'm basically 40 years old, and I have never seen a local supermarket completely empty of the day-to-day necessities. It was very, very difficult to get your most simple necessities like toilet paper or hand sanitizer because they were completely gone.
So as the pandemic hit a peak, how was your family able to get these cleaning supplies? Did you order them from online, or did you just constantly go to stores until you found something?
I was able to get some through Mexico, in Mexico, um, because at that time Mexico had not been hit by the pandemic. So there was no panic buying. So you could find a lot of the items in Mexico, like toilet paper, hand sanitizing, disinfecting sprays in your Mexico stores.
So, as you know, there were several food stations where families could go and receive food because there was food shortages within
Correct.
the stores themselves. Did you
Mhm.
have to go to any of these food stations?
We didn't. No.
Let's go ahead and move the conversation over to your friends now. Did any
Okay.
of your friends have problems getting any supplies or food?
Yeah, we basically did. They did as well as I did, with the same reaction that there was basically no um, day-to-day personal items.
While your family may have responded to the virus in your own way, do you know if your friends were any different?
Yes, I have a group of friends where there's different thoughts about the virus and the vaccine, but I have one particular person who he did not believe in the in the whole COVID-19. So he said it was whole government, hoax and stuff like that until he basically got the virus. Then he started, you know, believing what it was.
And he recovered from the virus?
Yes, he did.
So during March, when the US became vastly aware of the pandemic, did you visit any of these friends initially during that time?
Yes, we were co-workers, so more than visited them at home, we would literally see each other on a day-to-day basis.
And as the pandemic continued to grow in the US, can you describe if you became more distant from friends or if you continued to hang out with them?
Well, yeah, not only with friends but with family. We had a family, events every weekend where it's a family tradition. We would, get together, eat dinner, play some bingo and stuff like that. And you know, it has been more than a year that we have not been able to unite as a family.
Were there any major conversations that you remember having with your friends that dealt with the pandemic, such as them losing their job or when it would potentially the pandemic be over?
My group of friends did not lose their job because we are also dedicated to the food delivery industry. So we had a hike. Actually, we had a spike of deliveries where we would normally do, you know, 6, 7 deliveries a day. When the pandemic started and the whole shelter in place was implemented here in Dow County, we did see an increase, a dramatic increase of job load for us. I mean, we were working 15, 16 hours a day.
Lastly, in regards to your friends, did any of them have concerns with the future of the US and its return to normalcy?
I think we all do. I think we all do. I think we're just getting accustomed to the new norm, basically, because I don't think it will ever go back to what it was before.
I want to now move the conversation to your own personal experience with work during the pandemic.
Hmm.
So I understand that you initially started the pandemic as a delivery driver. Can you describe briefly what you did, as well as describing why exactly you got into this line of work during the time?
Well, I was working there prior to the pandemic. Um, and I work in the food carrier or delivery industry. So, like I told you before, when the pandemic hit, we saw a spike in the amounts of the citizens using these networking applications to order their food because basically they would not be able to go out, and us as frontliners, we were able to go from restaurant to restaurant and pick up their food. Not only restaurants, but also your local grocery stores to do their food shopping.
May I ask what delivery service you worked for?
I've worked for a couple of months. I was working for DoorDash and Grubhub at the time.
So, as a delivery driver, you are paid by the amount of deliveries you make.
Correct.
And due to the pandemic, I'm assuming you took advantage of these extra delivery opportunities as
Correct.
people were asking for them. Were there any specific policies that changed as a delivery driver during the pandemic?
Sure. Prior to the pandemic, we were as part of our job, we had to deliver the food or the groceries that we would get the customers in their hand. When the pandemic hit and there was certain CDC guidelines that we had to abide with or abide by, now we had to do what they called a contactless delivery, which we had zero contact with the customer and we would deliver their food items at their doorstep.
Were there any stories with dealing with a customer that you remember dealing with COVID during this time?
Not necessarily with the customer, but more on delivering like for home health or nursing homes. The steps that we had to go through was not what we used to go through when before the pandemic. Now delivering food in a nursing home is literally they have to take your temperature. You have to go through a pre-screening just to go to the front door.
Did any of your customers ask for any sort of like supplies, maybe besides just their food?
Okay, on one of the applications or one of the platforms, you cannot do that. But on the other platform, it does give you the option of food shopping. And yes, they would send us for their grocery or personal hygiene items.
As I understand, you later moved on to becoming a warehouse floor supervisor.
Mhm.
What exactly prompted the change onto moving to this new job?
Well, there was an opportunity of growth within, the industry, and I basically took advantage of that.
So, can you tell me exactly what you do as a warehouse floor supervisor?
I am in charge of the logistics and operations of a produce warehouse, which means I am in charge of receiving, shipping, and coordinating the logistics of our employees within the warehouse.
What was the warehouse normally used for prior to the pandemic?
We do have it was basically a produce warehouse where we would receive all kinds of produce, vegetables, fruits. But during the pandemic, or in the beginning of the pandemic, I might say, we were leased out by our local grocery store, which was HB, to use that warehouse as one of their distribution centers here in the Rio Grande Valley.
So, are you satisfied? Well, let's go ahead and ask some last questions. Are you satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in the Rio Grande Valley?
No,
Are you satisfied with the state response to COVID-19 led by Greg Abbott in Texas?
obviously not.
Are you satisfied with the current national response to COVID-19 led by President Biden and his administration?
He's going through the right path, but he still needs a lot.
If you had the power to respond to COVID-19 with policies, laws, or workplace decisions, what would you do differently, if anything?
First of all, I would amend certain laws that would give the power to the federal government, and it would literally give an order for us to wear masks and still respect or still do social distancing. Unfortunately, we don't have a system of government like that. We go through states. So the state and its governor has the authority to mandate the laws. And now in our state, we are not required to wear a mask.
Are there any other stories or experiences you would like to share with me that I may have not asked you already?
Well, I would love for the state and local government agencies to listen to the data that is being provided by the medical and science community, where they would know that we do need social distancing, we do need masks, and we do need more vaccines and better coordination here in the Rio Grande Valley so that we can actually reach the goal of 70% to reach herd immunity.
That concludes the end of our interview. I
Thank you.
appreciate your time, Juan Gonzalez, for participating in the UTRGV Voces Oral History Project. And that'll be it for now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.